Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my presentation. My name is Tom Heckley, and the purpose of my presentation is to fulfill the requirements for my VPSS certification in English. The topic for this presentation is the modern period in American literature, focusing on John Steinbeck, his short novel Cannery Row, and the hero of the novel, Doc Ricketts. During my presentation, I will talk about three things. Firstly, the modern period in American literature. Secondly, the historical context for this period. And thirdly, the short novel Cannery Row and its hero, or anti-hero, Doc Ricketts. Due to the limited time I have for this presentation, 3 to 5 minutes, I request that you ask your questions at the end. Thank you. Firstly, the modern period in American literature, roughly from 1901 to 1950, was characterized by a looking inward for answers about society, religion, and man's place in the world. It was a period of challenging the American dream and reflects a loss of faith in traditional values and beliefs. Important authors and books during this period include F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, a story of decadence and excess that came out in 1925. Ernest Hemingway's For Whom the Bell Tolls, a graphic description of the Spanish Civil War, came out in 1940. And John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, which came out in 1939. When the book came out, Steinbeck famously said, "I want to put the tag of shame on the greedy bastards who are responsible for the Great Depression, and I've done my damnedest to rip a reader's nerves to rags." These quotes represent a reflection of that loss of faith in traditional values portrayed in the modern period of American literature. Which brings me to my second point, the historical context of this period. A timeline from 1901 to 1950 would show a technological and social transformation of society on a scale unknown in human history. From the Wright brothers' first flight in 1903 and Henry Ford's Model T car in 1908, through World War I, the war to end all wars, and the Great Depression, in which 25% of all American workers were unemployed, to World War II, with the invention and use of the atomic bomb, and finally to the rise of communism and the Cold War at the end of the modern period. America and Americans were going through radical changes in how we see ourselves in relation to the world around us, which was reflected in the literature of the modern period. Which brings me to my third point, the hero in literature I chose to focus on, Doc Ricketts. Doc is a scientist, a marine biologist, to be more precise, in John Steinbeck's short novel Cannery Row. In many ways, Doc is a kind of anti-hero in that he is not physically imposing, nor does he do heroic deeds. His heroism lies in his humanity, his gentleness, and his respect for those around him, especially the misfits and outcasts that make up the characters on Cannery Row. Doc is a reflection of the modern literary period that rejects the traditional role of a macho hero in favor of a more inclusive, caring, vulnerable, and humble kind of hero. In conclusion, my objective in this presentation was to introduce you to the modern period of American literature through one of my favorite authors, and hopefully inspire you to read, reread, or have your class read Cannery Row. By the way, I checked, and Cannery Row is listed on the California Department of Education list of recommended literature for high school students, so you don't have to worry about all the references to drunkenness and sex. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Does anyone have any questions? If there are no questions, that is the end of my presentation.